What is going on, my fellow Pokemon TCG enjoyers? I have my very first in-person guest today for a very special deck profile / guide. And just before I film this video, I want to let you know, Aneil and I have a podcast together called the Shift Gear Podcast. We just recorded our episode recapping LAIC, where Aneil got top 16, I got top 4. So go check that out. If you're watching this video, that podcast episode is definitely live. But today, our subject is the Turbo Iron Hands EX deck. I think it's one of the most unique decks that made top 16 at this tournament, made by yours truly right here, Mr. Aneil Saini. So, Aneil, why don't you give a quick introduction for everyone at home?
I can't claim the deck, first of all. I can't claim the deck. First of all, thanks for having me, man. Obviously, we do the podcast together, but this is my first time on YouTube with you, so thank you for having me. Nice hour commute across town. So, quick intro about me or about the deck?
About you.
Okay, about me.
And then you can add the deck as well.
Sure, yeah. This is the first time I've seen someone say actual Turbo Iron Hands EX, by the way, and not like conjuncted together. But intro about me, I've known Ciaran since we were kids. I was like 10, I think.
No, I think we're a little bit older. I think we were like 12 or 11.
I've been playing for like 15 years.
Yeah, but I started playing after you. So.
Okay, so maybe like 12. Yeah. So I've known Ciaran forever. We've been boys for a long time. And then we founded this thing called Team Spark when we were a kid. It was an awful team, but that was the wave back then. That's what we did. And yeah, like I've been playing ever since, kind of on and off as I grew up. Been to Worlds a few times. And now we're back.
Nice.
It's been fun playing again in the modern era. It's obviously a little different, but...
yeah, it is very different than back then. So, just to give you guys a context of what we're going to cover. So, if you've watched my deck guides before, this will be a little bit different because normally I'm very well versed in whatever deck I cover. This deck I'm not super well versed, so I have the same structure that I normally have, like cards to consider in your deck, maybe cut the matchups, but I formed it more as like questions, and I have Aneil here. He's going to help me answer and figure out how to approach the deck. So, it's still a deck guide. Answer everything, but I'm going to be more like learning with you guys as we go through it. So we're going to start with Aneil's list. He can kind of tell us how he got there. I have some cards I picked out that I thought maybe you could add or like why they're not in the deck, and some I thought like, oh, maybe is this cuttable. I have matchups. I pretty much picked all the big decks in this format, so we can discuss the matchups. And at the end, I just want to hear like your thoughts on like the deck going forward, maybe as the metagame evolves, and just some concluding thoughts. So without further ado, I hope you like my little guy. And
dude, this is crazy. I'm not used to this.
Yo, the production value is crazy.
Production's really good here.
All right, so let's start with the list here. I think it's a very unique list. So if you look at it right away, it just looks like a Miraidon deck, like the Pokemon do, kind of. But when you start taking a look at like the trainers and the items, you have very different supporter line. You have stuff like Raihan and Peony, which I don't think I've seen any Miraidon deck play. You play VIP Pass, which I haven't seen. There's no Iono Judge path, and you play 18 energies. So why don't we start there? Why do you play 18 energy?
I was hoping you wouldn't set the number. I wanted people to like go through and count. Because Moffat and I made this deck picture, and we're like, okay, we could like lay it out and put dice on it,
okay,
or we could just make people count. So I wanted people to like zoom in.
No,
and
it looks
count
nice. I like it.
It's not bad, right? Thank Moffat. So yeah, this list. This was a list I found. I don't want to say I found it online, but there was a guy playing something similar to it on Limitless, and I was initially testing regular Miraidon, like the one that won, and I just found that it struggled and do a lot of things, and so I was kind of in like this like YOLO mindset where I was like, all right, I'm just gonna play something super high rolly and see how it goes. And I tested probably 60, 70 games of this list. There were some tweaks, there's some things that came in and out, one of which you're gonna cover later, being Mew. That was the biggest one, but basically the idea behind the list is you're just going crazy. Like honestly, like you just go crazy turn 1, and if the game lasts past like turn 5, you probably lose. So just don't get to that point. Just win first. And so if you go through the list individually and what it is, so you see 2 Miraidon, which is obviously a very questionable thing. First off, you play 2 Miraidon because you don't need it. You don't particularly need it to flood your board or anything because you have Fish, you have Squawk. You're kind of using those board spaces for other things.
Yep.
So you play double Squawk because if you prize 1, the game's kind of over. If you only play 1. Because if you notice in the list, your only draw support is with Squawk.
Yeah.
And you have the 1 of Research. So your ideal turn 1 is you're going in with Squawk. You want to Squawk. You want to Fish for Arvin or Peony, whichever one is more fitting. And then you play 2 VIP Pass. 2 VIP Pass and not 1 is awful, first of all. But that choice is made because it needs 2 searches that are not Ultra Ball.
Okay.
And if it's Nest Ball, you're basically doing... Like, if you're Nest Balling turn 2, you already kind of lost.
Okay.
So that's like the mentality behind it. So it's like, we're going to play... It was initially 1 Nest Ball, 1 Battle VIP Pass. And then we're like, all right, let's play 2 VIP Passes because you can get Squawk and Miraidon.
Okay.
And if you don't have a Raihan by turn 2, you're obviously not going to Nest Ball for Squawk turn 2.
Yeah.
You already basically lost. So it's just like a high roll deck. Just go go second and try and go off.
Okay.
And so 18 energy, obviously very conspicuous. The math ended up being like, before thinning, like 51% of you hitting 2 at all times.
That's pretty good.
4 tandem unit before Arvin, before you're like doing all that thinning stuff. So it's pretty good. I think I totally missed 9 generators throughout the event. Like total miss, like not even one.
So over 15 rounds? Okay. I mean, that's pretty low, to be honest. I assume you played like 50 generators or something.
Yeah, like probably more than that. And so that is the idea behind that. 2 Flaffy, just a normal Maraudon deck. You're just trying to blow stuff up. Raichu to deal with Charizard, deal with anything high HP. Raihan is really nice mid game since you don't really have a mid game. So you can hit a hands whenever you want to. You play 2 hands just because you don't want to prize one. I never actually used 2 hands. Okay. In the one game I tried.
So yeah, you either steamroll or you don't, I feel like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the idea behind that. 2 Force Seal Stone, help with consistency. Not popping your stone is actually one of the best things you can do with this deck if you're going to play it. Try to hold your stone until you absolutely need it. Okay. That's the one advice I would give with the stone. Changes I would make to the list we're gonna cover in a sec, so I won't get into that. But that was the 60, and clearly did all right.
Clearly did some work. So yeah, I think this is like really cool. Just a unique take on an established deck. So the strategy is really cool. So yeah, let's do some cards to add / cut. I put a nice little pylon here because we're working on the list.
I like it. Yeah, construction.
Okay, so let's start with Mew. So I think immediately when I looked at your list, I was like, this seems like the perfect deck for Mew since like you're thinning your hand, like you played Peony in the deck. So I have a couple questions here, so I'll start. Like, did you miss not having like a draw on a Pokemon like ability?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Easy. Okay. So that I think is kind of obvious.
Yeah.
But does this deck ever need to copy attacks? Is that ever something you were looking at, or no? You literally just want the draw.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So is it more like you want to copy Greninja? Is there any other Pokemon whose attack you could maybe copy?
You can copy anything. Honestly, like all 3 of these questions I'm looking at right now, the answer is yes.
Okay.
And that's the reason why I'm phrasing the way I'm phrasing it. The answer is yes to all 3 of these things, and the realistic answer why it was not in the deck is you don't have bench space. And when you're using VIP Pass, if you're ever using VIP Pass, you're not going to get this turn 1. At least you shouldn't, because you need obviously Miraidon, Sheep, Fish, Squawk, a 4-stone target, and then an attacker. Okay. So unless you have like the perfect hand, you can't fit it on your bench. And so that's the reason why I wasn't there. And as time goes on, yeah, like of course you want to draw 3, you want to copy some attacks, you want to do some things. Just don't have the space. Okay. You don't have the space in your board. And now that the tournament's done and I've like turned to normal play again, I've actually added one. Okay. I've added a Mew EX. That is something I would add over an 18th energy. Just because it's so useful to just have like that draw 3 late game and you're making yourself Iona proof that it's warranted clunking up the deck a little bit, I think. Okay. I'm the only one, I think, out of the people I've talked to who is a fan of adding this. Most people are just like, just keep it the way it is. Okay. But I like this card. Okay. And I think all 3 of those reasons are, like, all 3 of those questions are fantastic reasons to have it in the deck. Yeah. Having a pivot is huge. Yeah. When you're getting Iona to 1 and you have no idea what you're top decking or you're fleet footing or whatever, you need to have a pivot. Okay. So to keep on the pivot point, I put the next card here, Zero Aura. One, just because it's a pivot, like we were saying. But I noticed in your deck, like, you don't really have a 1-prize attacker besides, like, the Zapdos. And, like, we saw Gardevoir was really popular. So I think Gardevoir in your mind is probably a good matchup. But, like, did you ever feel like this card could, like, put it over the edge? Or, like, would you ever consider this instead of playing Mew if you just want to pivot? Yeah, it's, I would say it's the same argument for Mew, though. Just because you just don't have the bench space. Like, just with what separates this from regular Miraidon build is you're playing Fish. Okay. And that 1 extra bench space is, like, massive. Yeah. So when you have a pivot or whatever, that's 1 less spot for Fish, and if you ever need Fish late game, you don't have the option. So yes, I missed it. I would have loved to have it, but it wasn't really a win con versus Guardy anyways. My win con versus Guardy is turn 1 hands, and if you don't hit it, you lose. Okay. And those are my 2 losses over the tournament when we go through it. Like, legit, my 2 losses were I did not hit turn 1 hands. Nice. That's all it was. Okay. So I think this card, probably now. Yeah. Okay, next, we kind of talked about VIP Pass earlier, so I said, my question here, did you use it like effectively since you only had 2? Is having 2 worth it? And the last point here is like, can we cut this down to 1? Is this maybe something we can cut? Yeah, I think you definitely cut it down to 1. Okay. I liked it for the consistency aspect. Obviously, when you're playing a 15-round tournament, you need to be consistent. If you're trying to high roll a local as a BO1, you can definitely cut 1. Okay. That is something you can cut. Is having 2 worth it? Yes and no. I still think it's better than Nest Ball. Okay. I have stated on our podcast many times that I'm not a fan of anything in between 1 and 4 VIP Pass. I just think it's bad. And I stand by that. I think it's bad, but this deck is bad.
Okay.
So it encompasses what the deck is. And this is like the only situation where I can think of that VIP Pass is worth it in a 2 of.
Okay.
And like, I had one VIP, one Nest, and then my buddy pointed out to me, like, you are effectively just losing if you need a turn 2. So playing 2 is worth it, I think.
Okay.
But if you absolutely need to cut, you can definitely cut 1. There's a lot of hands where you start raw VIP Pass.
That is pretty good.
That helps.
Yeah.
Right? Like, obviously, the grand idea behind it is you're Arvening for it, you're Peonying for it, you're Forest Sealing for it. But there are times where you start it raw, and it helps, man. Okay. It helps a lot. So I think the card is extremely effective for the reason that you can just, like, say you start Jank, you start, like, Fish or something. You can just VIP Pass into Squawk Miranda, and suddenly your board is filled, you have a Forest Stone target, and you have a Squawk.
Okay.
So, yeah, absolutely. I think the card is useful.
Okay, cool. Next up, I have Peony. I think this is probably the most unique card in your list.
Yeah.
So some of the questions I had is, since you didn't have a Mew and you don't play any draw, like, is this card only ever getting used on your first turn? Like, is this just to get, like, double generator turn 1?
I wish I could say I only used it on my first turn. But I can't. And honestly, yeah, the card is obviously way better turn 1, where you have a Squawk to replenish your hand after. Yeah. But, hey, there are times where your hand is so dead in the middle of the game, and I know I talked to you about this already, where your hand is, like, energy flaffy or something, and there's nothing in your hand, and you just draw a Peony, you're like, all right, whatever, I can do something with this. Okay. So there are times where you use it mid-game. Yeah, like, absolutely. And I would actually argue that sometimes it's better mid-game. Okay. Because mid-game is when you're past your need for tools. So early game, obviously, you're trying to Arven for your Bravery Charm, your Force Seal Stone, whatever. But mid-game, you've already used those things. So you're like, all right, I can just Peony for double generator. It's kind of cracked. So
you're so aggro, basically, that, like, you don't even care. That, like, you're
no, you don't care. Like, nothing matters. And, like, the thing is, if your hand is energy Peony, your play is quite literally, like, promote a Raikou, attach to it, and then Peony. Okay. So you have your pivot set, you have a Fleetfoot for after your Peony, and you can just go for double generator and just go off. Yeah.
Interesting.
And, like, this deck sounds very, it sounds very one-dimensional, but it actually isn't. And I'll go over it, like, in our later slides, but there's a lot of, like, different little plays that you have to make with the deck, and you have to identify a lot of situations that made this difficult to play, and I think I learned going through the tournament about how to play better.
Okay, that makes sense. And I put kind of here, like, we just talked about Mew, so if you play Mew, like, I feel like this card's, like, crazy strong.
Correct.
So if we put Mew in, is there ever a world where you're playing multiple of this card, or is it one enough?
Bro, I hope not.
Okay, so no, the answer is no. We're not even going to spend time on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing when I was looking at your list is, like, Research was your only draw supporter. Yeah. You only played 1. So I think most Maraudon decks play, like, 3 or 4 of this card. So maybe go over why is there only 1, and would increasing more of that, would that improve the later stage of this game? Like, was that a card you were missing, like, in the tournament?
Yeah, so the idea behind Research, and, like, it wasn't in the initial list, like, the guy who played it did not play Research. Okay. It was 19 energies initially. Okay. The reason behind Research is that there are a lot of hands, and, like, what I just touched on with Peony, where you have your tools. You have what you need, and Peony's obviously discarding your whole hand, so you don't want that. So there's a lot of situations where you're, like, mid-game, you fish, and you're like, I don't know, you need double generator, you need switch card generator, whatever. And Peony fetches you that, but then it screws you for the next turn, whereas Research, you can kind of just high roll into it, and your deck is so thin that you normally research into whatever you want. Okay. So that's the idea behind having the 1 Research. It's just a fish target. Okay. And then the idea of it being a Research, not like an Iona or a Judge or something, is just that, like, you're trying to win by turn 4, by turn 5. Okay. So you're just trying to go off. And, like, in hindsight, I would probably switch it out for an Iono.
Okay. Like, you wouldn't play Research at all,
I wouldn't play Research at all. I think it's a great card, but I think having hand refresh is more important. Okay. But that's the idea behind Research. The idea behind Research is, like, kind of like a win more card.
You don't think you can make room for both? Because, like, you're making it sound like Research is a very good card here.
It is a very good card. Okay. It is absolutely a very good card. I just think that, yeah, you could make room for both. You could cut an energy, you could a VIP pass, but you don't want to, like, I don't want to mess too much with what works with the deck. And obviously, like, hitting 2 off generator is very, very important. Okay. So that's, like, kind of the entire basis of the deck. And like I said, like, when Guardian's the most popular deck in the format, you want to keep as many energies as you can in there. Okay. Because Turbo
Makes
Hands
sense.
is your win con.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, now here, we've already talked about this a bit.
This is my favorite topic.
Was 18 energy too much? You've already hit on most of these. Like, what was your hit rate on the generators?
Yeah, so 18 was not too much.
Okay.
18 is enough. You can go down to 17. Okay. But 18, I wouldn't say was too much. My hit rate on generators, A lot.
Yeah, okay.
A lot. There was like times where, and I talked about this in the podcast, where I literally had to show my opponent that I was playing 18 energies, like it wasn't
so they
capping.
don't get tilted that you're double energy like every time. Like,
bro, I promise you, this is what my deck does. Like, it's just one of those. Would this be the first thing to cut? Yes, I think energy is the first thing you cut. But 18's a good amount. 18's a good amount. The original one had 19. There was some like math behind it, where it was like 55% of the time or whatever.
Okay.
And then when I cut it down to 18, obviously that math changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go down to 17, you are playing with fire a little bit.
Okay.
But I think it is a necessary cut for something like Mew or something.
Okay. And then I didn't put this on the slide. I just thought of this. Like, would you ever consider playing double turbo in the deck?
Yes and no. I think turbo is really good, but I also think it's kind of useless. Like it's kind of it's in like that realm where I think like 2 times out of 10 it's a great card, and then the other 8 times you're like, I wish this was a lightning energy.
Yeah, because in my head I'm thinking like it's good like at the start when you attack with Iron Hands, but like after you attack the Iron Hands, I feel like your deck pivots like Miraidon, where you're like using Raichu and Miraidon to finish the game. And then you don't want double turbo. So
yeah, and I think double turbo gets better if you have Mew.
Okay.
But if you're cutting,
you can copy. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're cutting 2 cards though, like it feels kind of bad. Like you need, I think you need DT and Mew. Or none. Like obviously you can play Mew without DT, but you don't want to play DT without Mew.
Okay.
And I think it's good. I think people should try it. Like maybe go down to 17 energy, 1 turbo, cut a VIP pass for a Mew, like whatever you think works. But it's toying with the deck now. Now we're like kind of getting into that dangerous territory. We're like, am I doing too much? So like coming out of the event, I mostly kept it the same and just added a Mew.
Okay.
But DT was definitely something I thought of.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so now moving on, I want to go into like the matchups. I think this is probably the most interesting thing to discuss. So I kind of pulled up here like what you played against. So there's a lot of question marks on here. So first off, can you fill me in what these question marks were?
Yes, absolutely. The round 1 was Lossard. Round 2 was Tina. Round 3 was Lugia.
Okay, and then
single strike Lugia.
Okay, and round 9 was Stall, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So looking at here, like it feels like you played pretty much meta decks. Like you played against the 5 Gardevoirs. All right, 6. Am I missing one?
5 actually.
5, yeah, 5. So you went 3-2 against Gardevoir. Seemed like you did really well against Chien-Pao. I mean, I assume that matchup's good. So, yeah, it seems like you pretty much hit like what you were expecting going into the tournament.
Yeah, like I played this deck with the idea that if I hit Zard, I'm going to lunch.
Okay.
So like,
and you hit 0, right?
I hit 0 Zards. So that kind of paid off. And I mean, like we talk on our pod all the time about like how like you need Tom to help you in like, the tournament to kind of go your way if you want to go for a long run. And here it did. Nice. It absolutely did, and like it paid off. There, like the first 3 rounds were a little bit unorthodox. Like walking in and seeing Lost Star, Tina plus single strike Lugia was not what I expected to start off with. But you can see like as I started winning, as I started going to later rounds, you see like your expected meta share, like your Guardies, your Chien-Pao, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's how I think tournaments always go. Like once you start going to top tables, like the meta game starts like very narrowing down. So. Nice. Good to know.
Yeah, I guess we're fine for sure.
Cool. All right, so let's start with Gardevoir. This is obviously the most popular deck in the format. And just so you know, every slide I have first or second on it. So
I love it.
Let's start in Gardevoir. Are you going first or are you going second?
I'm going second.
You're going second. Is there any matchup where you're going first?
There is not.
Okay, so if you listen...
Actually, sorry, that's a lie. If I have prior knowledge of what my opponent is playing, and I know they play Path to the Peak, I'm going first.
Okay. Because your deck just gets shut down.
Yeah, but like I went blind second every single round. And I don't regret that. Like, I would do it again. Okay. Because, like, unless you know the dude and you know, like, oh, this person is 100% playing, like, Mew DT, then, like, okay, sure, you make that decision. But, like, I don't know anybody that tournament well enough where I'm like, okay, this guy's definitely, like, playing Mew DT. Like, anybody that I played against, I didn't know they were playing Path.
So, I guess for me, like, when I play Gardevoir, I usually like going first against, like, Miraidon or Hands decks because, like, I want to be able to Mirage set before they hand. So, is the reason you're going second just because like you think your deck is like so good at turn 1 hands, like you just want to have supporters, and you think you can like maybe get bricked if you go first and don't draw like the best hand?
Yeah, it's more about what the deck is and less about the matchup.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that the deck struggles when you go first.
Okay.
You're so reliant on Arvin or like research or whatever, like that if you go if you go first, you're in trouble a lot of the time. Like your hand will be, I don't know, like Raikou, Arvin, 5 energies.
Okay.
And you're like, all right, I just lose.
Yeah.
Right? So you want to go second just because you can start with that tempo as well. Like if I can go second and I get hands with a charm against Guardy, it's almost over.
Yeah. So did your opponents pick up on the fact that they need to be going second, or were they still picking first? Okay, they were figuring it out. Okay.
People thought about it a lot. Nobody actually decided to go second, but people like after. Oh, sorry. Actually, one guy did. One
but they were most still choosing to go first.
Most of them were choosing to go first.
So you didn't actually care if you won or lost the coin flip.
Oh, I didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually really nice about your deck.
Yeah, and like the thing was as well, like the person who did decide to go second won. It like immediately won because I just bricked.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah,
interesting.
So there's a lot of math to back that up. Like I said, I was testing and I was going first blindly, and I was losing a lot of games just to not play the game.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, I'll go second, play roulette here, and if I lose to path, I lose to path.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I wrote here, we kind of talked about it earlier, but like, did missing Zeraora ever hurt this matchup, or was it just like you're all in on Iron Hands, like you don't even care about having Zeraora?
I think I would have won more of the games where I wasn't all in with Iron Hands if I played Zeraora. Like just the games where like I missed a turn 1 or I arm pressed or whatever turn 1. I think I had more of a chance, obviously, if I played Zeraora. But it didn't. I don't think it ended up mattering enough where I would consider cutting something for it.
Makes sense. And I guess I wrote here, what was your prize map? So is it normally, like in my head, it's like Iron Hands, Raichu? Is that normally you're playing against Gardevoir?
Yeah, it didn't actually happen practically at all. Like, that never happened.
Okay.
That is also what my ideal prize map would be, but it never happened. It was always hands, either scoop, or hands, they would destroy me, and then I'd have to like claw out 2 prizes somehow. And like actually, like Guardies think it's kind of over, right? When I'm at 4 or 2 prizes and they're at 6, it's really not. Yeah. My deck is so susceptible to Iona Countercatcher, it's not even funny. And I guess like that was something people didn't really know. And now that the cat's out of the bag, people know the 60. They can use that more
to their advantage
optimally. Yeah. But like the surprise factor and what it was like throughout that whole tournament, I think was definitely a beneficiary like of this whole thing.
Okay.
And so my prize map a lot of the time was 2-2-1-1.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess maybe not just against Gardevoir, is like, are you trying really hard like not to Forest Seal Stone? Is that kind of your late game plan? Just leave a Forest Stone on the board?
Leave one and pray.
Yeah, because I guess you leave it, you have Blast, so.
It's the only thing you can really do. Like it's like people have picked up this deck like after I played it and they've tried and they've DM'd me saying like this deck is not good. And like it's true, this deck is not good. But there are things that I learned through my testing that made me really, really good with it. Okay. And I think that's one of those things. It's kind of like old Mew, where if you hold your Forest Stone in like Mirror Match or something, the moment you get Judge Path, you have a way out because you held it. It's kind of the same thing because your dead draws are inevitable. Eventually, you are not going to draw something, and you need to have a stone to bail you out. And often that's like the difference between getting a boss per game and losing.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, let's move on. I put Tina here, the other most popular deck. So you've already said you're going to go second. So I'm kind of curious, like, I guess it's kind of like a prize map question, but like, how do you use your attackers in this matchup? Because I assume you're leading with Iron Hands, but eventually they are going to like switch to Giratina. So are you ever even trying to knock out Giratina, or are you just trying to like Iron Hands, like all their little guys for the whole game?
Yeah, like funnily enough, if obviously I'm going in blind, right? So I'm choosing second, but if I lose game 1, I'm choosing first.
Oh, this is a matchup you choose first.
I would actually choose first.
Okay,
because they play high path counts.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would choose first. And that did actually come up, and I chose first, and I won. Okay. How would I use my attackers? Typically, like if you can kill a Tina V turn 1 with a Miraidon, that's probably your best avenue. Okay. If not, hands is fine, but you're susceptible to Tina just coming out. Your ideal like prize map in like an ideal world is like you kill a Tina, and then you hands your last 2 prizes.
Okay.
But that's not really practical, obviously. So yeah, you can lead with hands. You can do whatever you think you need to do. Obviously, they're a bit slower, so if you can get like turn 1 hands and go take 2 prizes, you're chilling. But if it gets knocked out, you're kind of in trouble after that, because the moment they get down to Tina V-Stars, the game's kind of wraps if you don't have it hands on deck. And that's kind of how the deck used to be as well against Miraidon. Like, against normal Miraidon, that's how it is. Like, if you get down 2 V-Stars, literally you could do nothing. But if you evolve into 2 V-Stars, the game's over, because you can't stream 2 Raichus.
Yeah, okay. So I wrote here, like, how do you prepare for Roxanne Path? Basically, like, is it like you get an Iron Hands and a Raichu, like, both set up simultaneously? Is that kind of the best answer since you have to use both? Yeah,
well, with Countercatcher, it kind of throws it out of the window a little bit. That is true, actually, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem. And that was, I only hit 1 Tina through the whole tournament, and I was thankful for that.
Did you win or lose the
I won it,
okay,
yeah. You can't really prepare for Iona Roxanne.
Okay, you just have to pray that you hit.
You hope that you draw a Beach Court or like you figure something out. Okay. A lot of the time, what I would do is I would like just plan a 2-hit Giratina.
Okay.
In my round 2, I actually took a 3 prize turn with an Amp on a Giratina, because what I would do is I would just hit it with a Raikou and then say do something about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
And then you just amp for 3 prizes and you win. So that's an avenue I think a lot of people don't see when they pick up this deck a lot. Is you can do chip damage and then amp for 3 or amp for 4. I won a game today.
Because effectively taking a prize with your attack.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I won a game today against Mew Vmax where I killed a Genesect and then I just damaged a Vmax.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so you can do stuff like that. There's a lot of like cute plays you can make, and I think that's one of your ways out of Iona Roxanne Path. Like just setting up some damage to be able to finish it off.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Okay, next I have Chien-Pao. Looking at your matchups, you did very good against this deck. Yeah. So is this one of your best matchups? And I wrote here also, how are you using your attackers? Is it basically just like low HP hands if Chien-Pao's there, Miraidon?
It's less linear than it looks on paper. Okay. Is what I'll say. First or second, definitely second. I'm definitely going second.
Yeah.
And how do I use like it's a tough matchup because you can go up 3 prizes and still lose.
Yeah, because their prize map is actually very good for them.
Extremely good.
Yeah.
And I think I got fortunate. Like a couple of my Ciarans I played against like didn't draw the best. So definitely I got to eat that up a little bit. There was a time on stream when we do our VOD review. Obviously we'll look at this, but where I had an opportunity to boss backs in the second game, and the commentators were like all over me for it. Like it's a single backs, you should kill it, whatever. I actually don't think it's correct to boss backs.
Okay.
Because you're putting your prize map off a little bit because you can't amp it obviously. And the other thing is with your deck and the way Cian-Pao inherently works is you can't bench down 2 sheeps, right? You can't. And your deck fizzles late game, and once you get into that scenario where you're trading 2 prizes for 2 prizers, you run out of energy faster than they do, obviously.
Yeah, because he's super cheap.
Yeah. So when you take a turn to boss backs, you put yourself in a bad spot. And I think like once it's established, you just leave it.
Yeah.
And I think that is the correct way to play the matchup. Like you have to keep trading 2 for 2. And once you boss backs and you lose your Flaffy or you lose whatever, you kind of just run out of attackers. And so obviously Cian-Pao's not benching a full bench. You can't use a Raikou to kill it. You need your Miraidons.
Okay.
Which means you need to hit gens, you need to hit Flaffies, you need to hit Raihans, you need to do something. And if you boss backs, you put yourself at a disadvantage in that sense.
That makes sense. And I wrote here, I think the answer is probably yes, just how your deck's built, but do you always bench Squawk since like that's like a 3 prize sitting duck against Cian-Pao?
It's a great question, and I think the answer is yes. You have to bench Squawk. I don't think you have a choice.
No, I don't think you have a choice either.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever? I should have put this in cards to consider. Did you ever consider playing like Collapse or a way to like pick up Squawk or no?
You could. It's something you could consider going forward. I never considered it personally because like once it's there, it's there. Like you have Squawk and Fish.
Yeah, that's
like,
true. So you have 2 liabilities.
Take your pick, man.
Yeah,
you're gonna kill something, so it didn't really matter too much. But yeah, it's something I would think about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Next up, I got Charizard. So I wrote here first or second. Like, does it change based on the build? Because I know the TMs are like they really like to go second. So would you ever consider going first against the Pidgeot version or no?
Against the Pidgeot version, yes.
Okay.
I think I would consider it. I would consider it into both.
Okay.
I actually think I go second into the TM version for sure.
Yeah, I think that for sure you go second.
But in the Pidgeot version, I think you do go first.
Okay.
Yeah. I just think it's better. Like they take an extra turn to kind of set up, and you have that chance to just because you're playing against Zard, your prize map is very, very different. So the moment you take 2 prizes, everything's getting knocked out in your deck.
Yeah.
So your prize map becomes really, really different. I'm trying to formulate it in my head as I say this, but if you go 1 prize and then 2 prize, 2 prize, 1 prize, or
you can't win.
It's tough to win.
Okay.
Right? Like you're just taking too many turns. So what you have to do is you have to set up a hands with a charm, and you don't go in and you don't touch anything until you have that.
Yeah, okay. Make it as hard as possible.
Yeah, so like if you don't take a prize in your turn 1, and the reason why you'd go first here is you're okay not taking 2 prizes in your turn 1, right? Like you're just chilling. They can't knock out anything. So you wait and you wait and you wait till you get hands with charm, and then you kind of go in. And I think that's the reason why you go first into the Pidgeot one. And like going second into the other one is also beneficial because you take a turn just to chill. Yeah. And you don't need to go turn 1 hands. You don't have to burn a Forest Stone. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You can just chill and not take a prize.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wrote here, like, do you ever, like, are you ever trying to knock out Charizard? Like, it seems almost impossible. Like, it takes 6 energy out of Raichu. So do you need to just go hands then boss, like, to win the game? Is that how it goes?
You can go hands boss. A play I like to make a lot was something I already touched on, where you hit Charizard for 220 and then
just
for 3.
amp it. Okay.
Yeah, that's also a really good play. The Pidgeot version is obviously a lot easier to win. Like
the Weak Lightning.
Yeah, like it's way easier to win because there's a sitting duck on the bench. So that matchup, you can actually just KO a Charizard and then go like KO that and Fish or something. But the TM Evo one, it's like just go next, bro.
Okay. So like, I wrote how bad is this match? Like if they flip over Charmander, like you're not happy.
I'm not happy.
Okay, so would you say it's like a 30-70?
It's a 30-70. It's not unwinnable. Like you can beat it.
Yeah.
You can definitely beat it. But like the TM Evo one is so hard to beat just because they're a 1 prize like kind of tempo deck and they take their time to set up just like you do. So you get in a lot more trouble a lot faster. Okay. When that happens, because once they get Beebs down, like they have everything they want, you get in trouble. Okay. So yeah, it's bad. It's not unwinnable, but it's definitely bad.
Okay. Yeah. So now I think you alluded this is like another bad matchup, maybe like Mew. So again, for a second, does it depend on the build? Like if you're playing against DTE Mew or Fusion Mew, like does that change or no?
First of all, I like your Mew scan. Pointing to Fusion.
I always Google like cards without a background, and for whatever reason, there's no English Mew without a background, so I always just pick the French one because I'm like, we're in Canada. Nous parlons français. Est-ce que tu parles français?
No, I do not.
Seulement petit peu?
No,
okay, you don't speak French. Okay.
No, I dropped that after grade 9.
I don't speak French either for anyone watching.
How the hell did you know how to say that then?
I took it up until grade 12.
Oh, okay.
All right, anyways.
Fair play.
Yeah, does it change first or second?
Yes and no. Obviously, like, blind, I'm going second.
Okay.
I'm always going second.
Yeah.
It doesn't really change anything. But against DT Mew, I'm going first.
Okay.
If I have the chance, just they play 4 paths, and that's terrifying.
Okay.
Would I go first against the Meloetta one? Probably not, because they trade so positively with Meloetta when you go first. So I'd probably go second still and try and if they like give me Meloetta on turn 2, I'd just take it with the hands.
Okay.
That's kind of the game plan there. Your main attacker depends on what version you're playing against. So it's a very viable line to go boss, boss, boss on 3 Genesects, or escape rope, boss, whatever it is.
Okay.
Because you don't play 3 box.
Yeah.
But with this version, you can also go into hands. Like hands is fine.
So you like anything you were also talking like you can hit a Mew and then hands it basically to fix your prize map too.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they don't really have anything they can psychic leap.
And like the thing is too is you put a charm on your Miraidon or whatever you're like attacking with.
Yeah.
It burns 3 tabs.
Yeah, that's actually a lot.
So
I mean they play back, but yeah.
Yeah, like when you consider that with psychic leap and the math you need to hit, you can't even one hit KO Flaffy without like 3 tabs. Or I guess it's two tabs. Yeah. You can't even one hit KO Flaffy without 2 tabs. So if you're burning 3 to kill a Miraidon, that's already off the board. So that's kind of your game plan there. Like, obviously it's not ideal, but you can hit 220 and then 120 and then kill a Jenny or something. That's always a...
So that to me makes the most sense as your prize map.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess also the escape ropes, you're pretty much always going to get like a baby V to knock out.
You hope so.
Yeah, so that's the other way. Okay. Because yeah, I do think it's like hard for them to like stream knockouts later in the game gets with the tablet. So okay, this matchup probably isn't favored, but I actually do see like a decent like prize map.
It's definitely like less unfavored than Zard.
Yeah, I think it's probably like 40-60 this one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. All right, next up, I got Lost Blocks. So I wrote like, is this matchup free? Like, is this free?
Yes.
Yes. Like, if you see a Comfy flipped over, you're like, yes.
Chilling.
Okay.
Chilling. Well, you're chilling until you see a Tina V.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's pretend this is just like normal Lost Box. So I just wrote here like, what are like their best lines? Is there anything they can even do to like counteract the hands or no?
Well,
like,
if it's like, I assume you're talking about Lost Box like Zard. Is that what you're talking about?
Like Lost Box Zard or
Dragonite even?
Yeah, Dragonite even. Like
like Dragonite obviously is it trades better into me than Zard does because Zard can't do anything until I'm at 2.
Yeah.
I would say their best line is if you can stream Dragonites over and over, it's a pretty good line.
Okay.
Once you get past that first hands, if they're able to respond, it's really tough for me to respond with the second hands. Especially in this matchup where I'm not benching 2 Flaffies.
Okay.
So I think that's your best line. Like you're kind of attacking aggro with Dragonite. There's not a whole lot I can actually do about a Dragonite.
Yeah, actually, I guess you have to go Miraidon with Zapdos to knock it out.
And hope I didn't prize Zapdos.
Yeah, and then, okay, what about if they start attacking with Radiant Charizard early? Because I think the list I got top 8 did play Mirage Gate. So, like, do you just ignore it and try and, like, rope in hands? Or, like, do you have to knock it out with, like, Raikou or
Great question. I would probably rope it in hands around it. Yeah. If you can get a charm on the hands, you're kind of chilling, too, if they don't have vacuum.
Because I think the list in top 8 only played 1 vacuum. So that's kind of hard to draw.
Yeah, so the charm's kind of your best friend in that scenario, but... If they have an aggressive Zard attacking early, you kind of probably lose anyways. It gets difficult. Like, if they really pop off that much and you're not at 2 prizes by the time they attack with Zard, you're in trouble.
True. Because I feel like as long as you're at, like, 4 while they're at, like, 5 or something, you should win.
You should be fine.
You can just go 2-2-2. So.
Yeah, like, you never really want to go in with Raikou or Miraidon if you can avoid it, but if you have to, you can.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely one of those matchups where you're, like, turbo hands.
Yeah, because I feel like if you put a hands there, like, your turn 1 or, like, turn 2, like, if they don't respond to it immediately, the game's, like, down on the spot.
Oh, literally my round 1 was me saying Ampy very much 6 times.
Yeah,
and it was
like,
game 1 and 2. Like, it's just over.
Okay. That makes sense to me. Okay, next I put the Iron Valiant. Like, let's just assume it's the anti-build that got second. Yep. So, again, first or second, then my first question is, like, do you even bench Mareep in this matchup?
This is certainly a bad matchup, I think.
You think it's a bad matchup?
I definitely think it's a bad matchup. You find it very, very difficult to stream Miraidons without Mareep and without Flaffy. And, like, the deck kind of falls apart when you don't have either, like, you don't have a Flaffy on board.
Okay.
So this matchup can be difficult. I think it's a bad matchup overall. I think it's probably close to 50-50, but I think overall it's probably 45-55.
Okay.
Just because you're so reliant on streaming Miraidons. Like, that's, like, your win con here.
Yeah. And
they don't play any, like, babies for you to, like, pick on with hands or anything. And you can't even bench your Mareeps. So you can actually get into trouble pretty fast with this in this matchup. Do you ever use Iron Hands? You can. I don't think it's ideal.
Yeah, I couldn't think of a scenario where it made sense. So.
Yeah, I don't think it's ideal. And the problem is you're also playing around their Entei, and they're playing around your Raikou. So you're playing this game of chicken where, like, you're trying not to bench, but my deck doesn't work without benching.
Yeah.
So your Squawks can get picked off by Metacham, which is also a problem. Like, if they get enough Tachyon bits going, your Squawk is a target as well.
Yeah, because I feel like on their end, like, they're just going to, like, put it on the Squawk the whole game because they can probably one-shot all your guys unless they have a charm. So... So I guess maybe turn 1 is like you just go like double Miraidon and you just try and generate it to both of them?
Yeah, and you just chill there and you just hope.
Okay,
and
nice.
like you also have to get out your Zapdos, which is another bench spot, and you have to bench a Squawk probably to play the game, which is another bench spot, and you get yourself in trouble pretty fast.
So this you go second for sure, right? Because you want to turn on Miraidon?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You're trying to outtrade this as if it's like the Roaring Moon matchup.
Okay.
That's kind of your plan here. Like you want to go in, you're like, my path to win is 2-2-2. That's like that's your game plan. If it deviates from that, you're in trouble.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And then I have here Snorlax Stall. You played it, or you ID'd against once. You didn't play against it, yes. But so I have some questions here. Again, first or second, and then I put like, what is your ideal attacker? Like, what do you do if Mimikyu comes out?
Yeah.
And like, is Squawk even okay to put on the board? Because I know its attack is like not good, but like it gets energy back if your opponent tries to run you out. So, what do you think?
I think you lose if you put Squawk on the board just because you only play 3 like switching outs.
Yeah, okay.
So you're in trouble. Like obviously like the attack's pretty good, but once they get that what is that thing? That vest? That big vest they play?
They play Big Charm? Or they play Cape of Toughness, but like
no, there's like a vest that reduces 40 damage when your opponent's leading.
Oh, I don't think the guy who like did well played that.
Oh, did he not?
Or he might have played one.
Most of the other ones I think do.
Okay.
Once that gets out and you have a Squawk on the board, you just insta lose.
Okay.
So as for Squawk, I would avoid it. Like you don't want to discard it and you don't want to keep it in your hand if you don't have a full bench.
Okay.
I think your idea, like your game plan against this deck is to take a Miraidon and just flood your board with things that can attack, obviously.
Okay.
So you probably get 2 Miraidon, 2 Raikus, maybe a Hands, maybe a Raichu. And then you're going in like that. I would probably put a Zapdos on the board too, just because you have to deal with Mimikyu. So that's how you deal with Mimikyu. You kill with Zapdos. And you actually do play enough energy where you can flood your whole board with energy.
Okay.
And you're okay. Like, you have 18 energies. Like, I think I did the math. It's like 3 from Raihan, 3 for the other Miraidon, 2 for both the Raikus. Like, you have enough energy. And you have to hope you obviously don't prize like 5 or 6. But it's actually not a bad matchup. And your ideal attacker is probably Miraidon, because then they're going to like counter catcher around it or whatever. But you want to have other things loaded. So if you don't actually ever discard a Squawk or a Lumineon, I guess you can leave your bench open, but you also have to hope they're not in your hand. Okay. So it can get tricky. Like we talked about in the pod on how like this is such like an intricate matchup. Like you're resource managing so hard. This is one of those matchups where obviously you are resource managementing. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
And like your idea is like you just want to spread as much energy around the board as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think this is the last one next. Yeah. So Roaring Moon, I didn't even have that many questions. Like I feel like it's just beat down back and forth. Like
it literally is beat down back and forth.
Yeah.
It's whoever goes second wins.
Okay.
So whoever wins coin flip, like, and I actually don't know whether Roaring Moon players like default choose second. But if they do, I just lose. Because this happened to me at a challenge last night where I was like playing, and 2 guys playing Roaring Moon knew what I was playing.
Yes,
they just chose to go second. I just lost.
Okay.
You need them to miss a turn if they go second, and since you don't play like any disruption or any path, they never really miss a turn. So you're like if you go second, you're okay. If you prize Zapdos, you probably just lose on the spot. You have to go in with Raichu and hope you draw it off your first 2 prizes. That's just bad. So your ideal attacker is obviously Miraidon. You're trying to go Miraidon, Raichu, or you can go Miraidon, Hands into a Greninja or something. The other play you can do is you can bait out a Frenzied Gouging with a Charm on a Miraidon. Go in with Hands, take 3, and then go in with Hands on a Squawk to take 3.
Okay.
It's not great, but
it's an option.
It works. Yeah. It happened, and it actually worked, because a lot of the time, especially if you go second, they're going to feed you a 1 prize or turn 1. And my deck is not built to be able to boss and function as well on turn 1 as any other deck.
Yeah, so they feed you 1 prize, they're like, you have to just hands turn 1, right?
You have to hands turn 1, or you're just taking it and hoping you can hands a Squawk later.
Okay.
So it's as close to 50-50 as I think it gets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Pretty close.
I mean, that makes sense to me. Okay, so I just have here called Deck Going Forward. Now that LAIC's happened, we have a more defined metagame. I kind of just put the graphic here. Like, this is kind of like the decks that did well. So, like, I feel like these are probably going to be the big players in the format going forward. So, how would LAIC, like, shift your approach to either playing this deck or, like, building this deck?
Yeah, like, we talked about it a little bit. I don't think I would play this deck going forward personally. Not for myself. I think other people can play it now. I think it's not a big deal, but if everybody knows exactly what I'm playing and they choose to go second, it's a problem.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to League Cups and stuff, you're probably fine until people see what you're playing. And
yeah.
If you don't leak that it's an 18 energy version, you're probably okay.
Yeah, because if you flip over Miraidon, they're going to assume you're playing, like, normal Miraidon.
Exactly, yeah. And, like, the deck really falls apart if you don't go second. And, like, that was one thing I learned throughout, like, obviously, like, through a long run, you're going to learn things about your deck. That was, like, the most important thing I learned. I cannot go first. The deck cannot go first. So how does it shift it? Like I don't think it shifts the approach. I think if you know your opponent is playing my build, you choose to go second.
Okay.
Obviously. I think that shifts a lot. Obviously the counter catcher Flaffy play is really, really strong. And I don't think people realize that until later rounds. Iono countercatcher Flaffy is disgusting, especially if you can Screamtail around it.
Yep, because the Squawk's gonna die to Screamtail.
Yeah, so you get in trouble pretty fast as a 18 energy Miraidon player. But I think I think Guardy helps weed out the Zards. So Guardy's success kind of helps your matchup spread a little bit overall. I think Mew is like sneaky good right now. And I think people are gonna catch on. I think when people start playing more Mew, you're gonna get in trouble a little bit. But like I said, if you play the Mew EX and you play the maybe DTE or two, you can improve your Guardian matchup a little bit, and you can also improve your Lost Unit matchup as you can like Mew your way out of problems. Okay. So I think like if you play Mew EX, I think Mew EX is the one card I would include. It helps Lost Unit as well with Lost Impact. You can copy that. So yeah, that's the one card I would include, and I think that helps you kind of adapt to the adaptation. So when people like know what you're doing, you kind of have a counterplay to that. Yeah. So the deck is I wouldn't say it's one trick. I think the deck as a whole requires a lot of preparation. You need to know what you're doing going into every matchup. Yeah. And I think that was one thing that I learned through my testing as well. Like, you're not supposed to go in with Raikou every game. It's not like a typical Miraidon build. You kind of have to know what you're doing. And that's tough. That's tough to like really grasp without testing. So if you pick up this deck for the first couple times, it's not really going your way. My advice would be to stick with it, learn the matchups better, and just keep going. Like, the deck is very consistent. You set up almost every game, but you have to know what you're doing. Okay. Yeah. That
makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, that's basically all I had here. So I just put my thanks here. But the biggest point is go listen to the Shift Gear podcast.
Yes, please.
We have my co-host here, right here. Both of us, we do it. That's me. Yeah, it's you, Aneil, here. So, Aneil, thank you so much for coming on today.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Anything besides the Shift Gear podcast you want to plug?
No, I made this mistake on stream. I actually didn't plug the
Shift Gear podcast. I was listening to your interview. I'm like, how do you not plug our podcast?
I don't know. I kind of forgot.
I put my fun fact when I went on streams that I have a YouTube channel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they shouted it out.
Smart. So. Yeah, like, I kind of just brain farted. I forgot that we had that. I forgot we were like content creators now and all that. But yeah, like the one thing I would say, just as a concluding thought, like not related to plugging myself or anything of the sort, is like kind of what I touched on, like play the deck. Play the deck before you make, like, not a judgment on it, but like for yourself, if you're considering playing it, play the deck and play it against multiple matchups before you really decide whether it's worth your time or not. A lot of it is deciding, like, do I go in with hands here? Am I okay with whiffing an energy off generator? That happens a lot. Where, like, you Arven for a generator and you hit one. You're like, what do I do? Yeah. Do I commit to hands or not? And the answer is you commit to hands. That's the answer. If you have to arm press, you arm press. But you hope you can just buy a turn somewhere along the line. Play the deck out. Like, really enjoy what it has to offer. It's a fun deck to play. But play it out before you, like, kind of decide whether you want to play it or not. And that'd be my, like, concluding thing that I would say, and the most important thing. Holding Forest Stone is huge. Yeah. Just, like, there's little tips and tricks you can learn, like, with the deck as you go along. And I think that's important to kind of learn before you decide whether you want to play it or not. As for ourselves, yeah, we have a podcast every Wednesday. I think it's pretty good.
I hope it's pretty good.
I hope it's pretty good. We have a lot of people listen, so I hope it's pretty good. Check out our podcast. We're making big strides. Ciaran obviously had himself not too shabby of a weekend as well at LAIC, and I wish I was the one interviewing him, because I think his deck and his run was pretty interesting as well. But I'm sure he'll touch on that at the channel at some point. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on. This is fun, and we'll do it again.
Cool, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks,
all right.
Man. Appreciate it.
Good luck on all your games out there.
Peace.